Thanks for tuning in to episode 15 of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. Today's episode features part 1 of my interview with Jen Giffen, where we talk about 9 different audio tools for varying uses in the classroom. You'll have to listen to develop an understanding of which tools to use in which circumstances. Also, finally, the launch of GIF-a-Day, and I come clean about how many listeners the show really has. Don't change the channel.
Hi, this is Chris Nesi from the Podcast PD Podcast, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. The opinions expressed are those of the individual hosts. Be sure to check out all the other great education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com and get ready, because the learning begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast with Jake Miller.
Greetings, duct tapers. I appreciate you, and I'm so grateful that you're here once again listening, and I continue to be proud of your dedication to the craft that is education, as well as for doing your best for your students. I'm going to lead off with some big news. Drum roll, please. Be honest, how many of you are actually doing a drum roll at home right now, or in the car on the steering wheel, or on the treadmill? Anyhow, big news, GIF-a-Day has finally launched for registration. The first email will come on Tuesday, April 23rd for those people who register, and that gives you less than 3 weeks to get registered. Just go to jakemiller.net/GIF-a-Day. So for the new listeners out there, what is GIF-a-Day? It is a set of learning opportunities that give you the chance to level up in your ability to use tech tools in quick, bite-sized bursts. The GIF-a-Day learning opportunities consist of daily emails sent to registrants. Each email will contain one GIF demonstrating one skill in the current tech tool. Add that tip into your practice and then be ready for a new tip the next weekday morning. Day by day, GIF by GIF, tip by tip, drip by drip, you'll level up in your use of the tool. At the end of the series of daily emails, not only will you be skilled in a new tool, but you'll also receive a bonus ebook containing all of the GIFs from the learning opportunity and a certificate of completion in that learning opportunity. The first iteration starts on April 23rd and is about Google Sheets. 33 Google Sheets GIFs, and it costs $25. That's less than $1 per GIF. Learn how to use formulas for basic math functions, as well as more than a dozen other formulas, plus sorting, filtering, creating charts and graphs, conditional formatting, cell protections, data validation, pivot tables, pulling in information from other spreadsheets, and more. You could register at jakemiller.net/GIF-a-Day. And by the way, if you want to register a group of people or pay by purchase order, just email me at JakeMillerTech@gmail.com. And those of you who participate, by the end of that month worth of GIFs, you will be absolute Google Sheets ninjas, because there's some really exciting things in there that I've actually had to brush up on my skills on just to make the GIFs that I'm sending you. At the top of the show, I was saying how much I appreciate you listening, and I'm also appreciative of you duct tapers for sharing your love for the show in so many different ways, including sharing it with colleagues, sharing it with friends, tweeting about it, giving the show unbelievably kind reviews on Apple Podcasts, responding to the show's Flipgrid grid, and finally, subscribing. If there's any things in that list that you haven't done, I'd really appreciate your support, whether it's a tweet, a review, a Flipgrid response, or telling your coworkers about the show. As usual, we'll hear some content from you wonderful duct tapers at the end of the show as I share some of those hashtag EDU duct tape tweets, one of those Apple Podcast reviews, and one response on the Flipgrid. Actually, the question that Jen and I are tackling today comes from a Flipgrid question, so one lucky listener will hear his or her voice when we get to that part. If you head to that grid, go to eduducttape.com and click on the Flipgrid link, or go to flipgrid.com/eduducttape. If you head to that grid, you can submit a question that you just might end up hearing on the show at a later date too. By the way, I've been spending a lot of time stuffing stickers into envelopes. It ain't fun, and I think I've got a paper cut on my tongue. That it hurts from licking the envelope so much. But it's so cool seeing how many people want to slap an educational duct tape sticker on their laptop. So you keep requesting them, and I'll keep sending them. Just head on over to jakemiller.net/send-me-stickers to request yours. Again, they could be just for you and your friends that listen to the show, or they could be for you to help me out and pass out at an upcoming ed camp or conference. Last thing before I climb up on my soapbox, I wanted to fill you in on my calendar. Maybe we can cross paths at one of these events for the Duct Taper Secret Handshake. Guess I'm going to have to come up with what that is. I will be speaking at the Keep Academy in Streetsboro, Ohio on June 10th, at the LEAD Conference in Strongsville, Ohio on June 18th, at ISTE on June 22nd and 24th. I'm psyched to meet a whole bunch of duct tapers at that one and a whole bunch of my EdTech idols as well. I'll be doing a presentation in the online Teach with Tech conference on July 23rd. That's one that you can all join since it's online. I'll also be at the TCCA conference in Houston in October. There are a few others that are currently penciled in that I'll share as soon as the ink dries on them. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me just grab my soapbox from over here. Yeah. There we go. That's perfect. Climb up on there. I'm actually here on the soapbox to come clean about a little secret here. Last week when I told my wonderful guest Kim Polishuk that we had 34 listeners, she was so unbelievably sweet about it. And, well, I don't think she realized I was joking. You see, when I recorded the second episode with Ann Radefeld, the podcast hadn't launched yet, so there was no way to tell how many listeners it'd have, so I joked about there being 9. And when I recorded the third episode, I still didn't know how many listeners were out there, so I teased about it jumping to 12 or something like that. And then, well, I just thought it was fun, so I kept adding 5 or 6 each episode. But I have to be honest, I've been blown away by the response to the show. You see, there aren't 34 listeners, like I told Kim. There are around 1,200. And I am unbelievably honored because I didn't get those listeners by advertising on a billboard or in the Super Bowl. I got it because of you, because each duct taper told other educators and they became duct tapers, and it just keeps growing, and I keep being blown away by it. But it's not enough. You see, it truly amazes me that 1,200 educators are listening to me, but there are over 3 million teachers in America, and when you add in post-secondary teachers, preschool teachers, and all of the other educators in our country, I bet it's approaching 4 million. And that's just one country. There are tens of millions of educators in the world, and I have a message about integrating educational technology that I think they all should hear. And I'm going to keep shouting it from, well, from my desk in the corner of my kids' playroom until they do. It might sound silly, and it might sound arrogant, and it might sound pompous, but I see how intimidated many educators are by technology, and I see how overwhelmed many of them are, and I think I can help. So here I am. Here's educational duct tape. Tell your friends. Bring them along for the ride. I think they need to hear the origins of the educational duct tape metaphor that I shared back in episode 1. And I think they need to hear my favorite Maya Angelou quote from back in episode 3. And about paralysis by choice, which I talked about in episode 5. They for sure need to hear that. And they need to be comforted by the Martin Luther King Jr. quote that we talked about in episode 6. They need to know that what they're doing is good enough, as long as they're moving forward. And they need to hear all of the talk about the adjacent possible. I'm sorry if it's arrogant to think that I'm special enough to be the one bringing these messages to the educator masses. I don't actually think I'm special. I just think, well, the one book that influenced me more than any other book that I've ever read is titled What to Do When It's Your Turn, and It's Always Your Turn. It's by Seth Godin, and the message is, I'm paraphrasing here, don't wait for the invitation. It's your turn. It always is. You just have to take it. And here I am. I'm taking it. Wow, that was really serious there. I got really into that, didn't I? Don't worry, there's going to be plenty of giggling and laughing with our guest, Jen Giffen, which actually, Jen and I had so much fun recording that we recorded for over an hour. And I said, Jen, I think we just recorded 2 episodes. And so here is part 1 of my interview with the awesome Jen Giffen.
Today's guest.
All right, today's guest is Jen Giffen. Jen is a digital literacy consultant in Ontario, Canada.
Canada. It's a whole new country.
Oh, Canada. Oh, goodness. I think I should leave that in. She's actually in regular old Canada. She is a Google innovator, a sketchnoter, and co-host of the Shooks and GIF podcast. She's a former player of the game of school. She now seeks to ensure learning is authentic and relevant, especially for struggling students. I like that former player of the game of school thing there. You could follow her on Twitter and Instagram at Virtual GIF. That's GIFF. And on her website at virtualgif.com. Welcome in, Jen.
Thanks, Jake. I'm really excited to be here. I told you before we went on the air that I was one of the original 9 listeners. I've been there since the beginning. So I'm really excited to talk to you here today and share some of the stuff that I know and hear some of the great stuff that I know you'll have to share with me with the questions we're going to tackle.
Yeah, thanks for listening to the show. I'm one of the original 265 that listen to the Shooks and GIF podcast. It's my daily dose or my weekly dose of Canada.
Canada, yeah. Sorry.
I learned things about Canada from that.
That's funny. Well, and at one point you told us that you were way back likely a Canadian.
Yeah, then I found that it was fake news.
I know. That was sad.
So
very American of you to spread that fake news around.
Oh, careful there. Careful. So for those of you that don't listen to the Shooks and GIF podcast, which you need to, I was on the show back in, I think it was early January, with Kim, last week's guest, Kim Polishuk, and broke the news that my dad had told me he found on an Ancestry.com that I had an ancestor from Canada.
Canada.
He didn't say Canada, though. He called it Canada. And so I broke the news on the podcast, and Kim was like, "Where at in Canada?" And so I asked my dad, "Where in Canada is that ancestor of ours from?" And he said, "Oh no, I'm sorry, it was Britain."
Yeah, kind of the same, but not.
Yeah, tea and crumpets and all that good stuff. I'm fine with that, I guess.
Well, that's okay. Well, if you ever feel like being from Canadian, I don't even know how to say it.
I don't even know how to spell it. I just keep saying Canada.
Canada. Canadian? Can we go with that? We're glad to have you, Jake. Anytime.
The two of you are my favorite Canadians.
The Canadians. That's how we have to say it.
Oh, goodness.
Thanks. I don't know how many Canadians you know, but we'll take it.
I do too.
And I'm glad we're at the top of the list.
Right. So for those of you that aren't listening to the podcast, you've got to listen to Shooks and GIF. But for those of you who want to hear Jen in person, see Jen in person, Jen, can you tell them where you're going to be in the near future?
So this weekend, I am presenting at the Ontario Edtech Team Summit. I'm a spotlight speaker there, and I'm doing an Ignite talk. So that's April 6th and 7th in Cambridge, Ontario.
That's in Canada, right?
Up in Canada, yes.
Okay.
Then more Canadian conferences. I'll be at the Connect conference, which is sort of like our Q or our ISTE here in Canada. Canada.
You can't even say it right anymore.
I can't do it. I'm going to get deported. And that's in Niagara Falls on May 1st to 3rd. And I'm presenting on both the 1st and the 2nd, 2 different things there, another Ignite talk. And I'm on a panel for the On Ed mentors. And then on the Saturday, May the 4th, I'm at the Echo Conference up in Owen Sound, Ontario. And then I'm presenting alongside the amazing Sylvia Duckworth at ISTE down in Philadelphia in June, at the end of June. So we're really excited. We're going to be doing some sketchnoting there together.
Yeah, so I'm pumped for that for 2 reasons. That last one, because number one, I'm going to meet my favorite Canadians at ISTE, because this is going to be my first ever ISTE, so I get to meet you guys. But also because Sylvia Duckworth is like a rock star, so you get to present alongside Sylvia. That's just amazing.
And she's not only a rock star, she is quite literally one of the nicest people on the planet. She is so humble, and she's so down to earth, and she's so giving, and she's so inclusive. So you will absolutely adore her. And she'll be your 3rd favorite Canadian. She might be. She might be now. I just don't know her in person, so she can't be. She's literally tied with the rest of the country. Okay.
You and Kim are tied for 1st, and everybody else is tied for 3rd right now.
I really hope that I'm a little bit above Kim though, because I say GIF.
You do say GIF, and I met you first because we video met back in last June at the New Visions Cloud Lab conference. Mm-hmm. Yeah, their innovation throwdown.
Yeah, that's a regret for me that I didn't fly down to New York. I should have done it. I should have just done it, and I didn't. But there you go.
Well, they told me the same thing they told you. They were like, you could just present over Hangouts because I know we're far away from Ohio. And I was like, wait, it's at the Google building in New York? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, can I come? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, I will be there.
Yeah, see, you are smart and I am dumb.
And that's one of those things where I told, you said it, not me. But that's one of those things where I told my wife, hey, I'm going to go to this and they're not paying me for it. But when I told her it was at Google New York, it was like, that was almost like on our like the freebie list, right? Where like, she can't deny me a trip to Google New York.
Yeah. It's like the episode of Friends where you have like the list of people that you're allowed to like cheat on your spouse with. I feel like those of us in the EdTech community have certain conferences or locations we're allowed to go to with, like, you get the hall pass.
Totally.
You can go away and spend our money on that. That's totally, ISTE is one of those. Yep, that's legit.
ISTE is totally on that list. Yep. Well, now that we've goofed around and mispronounced the name of your country and been super silly, let's play a game, even though we've already been silly enough as it is. So we're going to play the Edtech Bff Game. So the Edtech Bff Game was invented on the spot back in episode 6 when I made Sean Fahey painfully try to answer questions about what he thought Carly Mora would answer for those questions. And she confirmed what he was right and wrong on in episode 7. So last week, since your Shooks and GIF collaborator, Shooks, was on last week, we've got to play the Edtech Bff Game. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I need like a soundbite for Edtech Bff. I feel like it should be like really game showy. I need like Edtech Bff game time.
See, there you have it. See, done. Take that out.
Cut. There it is. It's ready.
Awesome.
Send that off to the printing press or whatever. What do you send it to? You don't send it to a printing press.
I don't know. The audio gods. I don't know.
The audio gods. Nice.
Maybe in a question later in this episode, we could answer it.
Yeah, right. What do you... Yes, we could talk about audio in a question later. You totally cut me off guard with that one. I didn't know what to say there. Okay, so the Edtech Bff Game. So my first question for you, and you have to answer what your answer is, as well as what Kim's answer is, okay? And my first question for you is, what is your favorite 80s band or singer? So why don't you go ahead and give me your answer first?
Okay, is this currently or it was the 80s?
You can give both answers if you want to.
Okay, this is somewhat hard. So I'm going to go, does it only have to be one? This is hard, Jake.
You can do whatever you want. It's not for a grade.
Even if it were for a grade. Okay, so I was a huge New Kids on the Block fan, and they did come out in the 80s. I also loved Belinda Carlisle. So these are late 80s. Yeah. Little Heaven on Earth, never hurt anybody. I also love Tiffany. And you know what? I don't think you can go 80s without doing like old school Michael Jackson.
Nice. Okay.
So I think any of those.
Okay. So what do you think Kim's answer was?
See, this is hard for me because Kim really listens to a lot of music, but she especially loves musicals. So an 80s band is difficult for me. I'd want to go back and see what musicals came out in the 80s and maybe give you an answer like that.
Like she was like, hello, Dolly.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, the soundtrack from Les Mis. I'm not kidding. And Kim's got a great voice. I don't know if she sang for you on the podcast, but she only sang 2 songs, just 2. She's got some pipes on her.
I didn't ask her to sing. I didn't know.
Yeah. See, you should have done the interview in the other way. Favorite 80s band or singer for Shooks? Oh.
Yeah. She didn't name a Broadway play. No, there was no Broadway productions involved.
Okay. So I'm going to go something more. Oh, see, I'd also go old U2 for me or Bon Jovi. Oh my gosh. There's too many. I'm not good at favorites. I have
too much fun here. I'm gonna give you a hint.
Okay.
You've named her favorite, and she actually named 2, and you've named both of them.
Okay, so I was actually gonna go either Michael Jackson or Madonna.
Let's hear what you said. You ready?
Yeah.
So I couldn't choose. I had 2. Can I give you 2?
You can give me 2. That's fine.
Okay, so Michael Jackson and Bon Jovi.
Awesome.
Oh my gosh, Bon Jovi's mine. That was gonna be my answer. If anybody asked me, if you were like, "Who's yours?" I'd be like, "Totally Bon Jovi."
Yes,
Bon Jovi. That's pretty awesome.
Next question: what do you think Jen's favorite '80s band or song is?
Gosh, I don't know. I would be able to guess the '90s, but don't know about '80s. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you what she would say for 90s, I think. I'm pretty sure she would say New Kids on the Block.
Okay.
Well, there you go.
So then,
were they in the 80s too, though?
Yeah, you know what? They came out in the 80s. I think that's valid. It counts.
Really?
Yeah, 84 and 90.
Okay, New Kids on the Block. There we go.
Yeah, I'm a big NKOTB fan.
Oh, yeah? Okay, so the second question, and I want to hear your answer for what yours is and what you guess Kim's is.
Okay.
What are you currently binging on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu or whatever it might be?
So I'm very curious to see what she says because she knows I'm not a big TV watcher. Like I'm not, she probably, I imagine, said that because we talk about that a lot. Whereas she is like constantly binging shows. So my last one that I binged was Shameless.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, with William H. Macy. Is that who's that? Yeah, William H. Macy and Emmy Rossum. I love that show, and it is one that I will constantly binge. It's one that I do a lot.
Okay, so what do you think that Kim is currently binging? She did admit that she watches a lot of shows.
Yeah, she does watch a lot of shows. So currently binging on Netflix or Hulu. Right now, I think she's going back to Walking Dead is what I've most recently, because Walking Dead is starting again. But when you interviewed her, it hadn't started up again. So she was also rewatching The West Wing, which is her all-time favorite show, because she listens to the West Wing podcast where they just rewatch every episode of it. She also loves Outlander, like ridiculously loves Outlander. But currently watching on Netflix. Can I open Netflix and see what's on there?
No, that's cheating.
Okay. I'm gonna go with those, even though I don't think it's one of those. Those are ones that she does. But do you know what she may have said for me though? I wouldn't be surprised if she said The Good Place, because I was binging that before Shameless.
Okay, so currently I am on Prime watching Friday Night Lights.
Oh, okay.
And on Netflix, I don't know if she would know this, but she might say that I've been binging Outlander. I'm finished it, but I talked about it a lot.
That's another one that I do watch.
I think she's going to guess West Wing. That's one you always talk about on your podcast, isn't it? West Wing.
I mean, I've seen the whole series maybe 8 times through, and I do. It's my favorite show of all time. Okay,
and last... Oh, no, I got to ask you what she's binging. So what would you guess that she is currently watching on Netflix or Amazon Prime or library DVDs or whatever it might be?
What is Jen watching? I have no idea what Jen is watching right now. I would, okay, so I don't think she's binging anything. She binges podcasts more than she binges Netflix.
I am a podcast binger. That I do. Like, I've been known to like just wear headphones around all weekend.
So I know she was watching Outlander.
Now that we've confirmed that you guys are for sure EdTech BFFs, because you knew each other like scary well there.
In fairness, we do see each other almost on the daily.
Yes.
So.
Let's move on to some actual educational technology and some educational duct tape. Now, I admitted earlier in the show before you came on that there are more than 34 listeners, as I've been teasing about throughout the history of this show.
I know, there's like you're up to like 52.
52. There's more than 52 too. I'm going to be upfront with the audience. Maybe I won't tell them the actual number, but I'll be upfront now. So
I think you should be proud of it, Jake. I think you should say your number. Listen, Shooks and Gif just had a really big milestone over spring break for us last week. I went on just to look at something on Anchor, prepping for something, and we had surpassed 20,000 downloads.
I saw that. Congratulations.
Thank you. It took a year to get there. Yep. But I have a feeling that you're going to get there way quicker, because I cannot go on social media without someone talking about educational duct tape. It's everywhere. It's gone viral. I love it.
People have been very kind. So thank you for that. Yeah, we are at about 1,200 an episode right now.
That's incredible. Yeah. So yeah, you're going to get there. You're going to get there really quick. That's amazing. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. And I love your show too. So you're going to keep racking up those listens. Okay. So now hopefully some of those listeners are new listeners this week. So just to bring them into the loop on what educational duct tape is. So educational duct tape is my goofy metaphor that educational technology is that it's most useful when it's not the goal of a lesson, but it's a tool being used to address a learning goal or a problem the teacher might have, or a learning standard, or a need the teacher has in the classroom. Much like using duct tape is never one's goal, but it can be a very effective problem solver when you're fixing things around the house. Henceforth, educational duct tape. Sound good?
Sounds fantastic.
Sounds fantastic. Okay, so now let's patch some questions with some educational duct tape.
Okay.
So this question comes to us from Emily Coldwell. Take it away, Emily.
Hi, Jake Miller and friends. I do have a question for you. I'm getting ready to do a podcast with my students, and I need to know what is the best audio editing program that I can use on a Chromebook. Chances are my students will be recording their audio on their iPhones or their Android devices, but I need a way for them to be able to upload that to something where they can edit their content, and the goal would be for them to create a podcast where not only do they narrate sections of it, so they'd be adding their own voice, but then also to input that recording that they would be getting from an interview that they're going to do. So if any of you can share any insight in that way, I would love it. Thank you.
How can we edit audio on Chromebooks?
Okay, so I have, how many is it? Let me read some Roman numerals here. I have 8 different suggestions, and I might talk around some of them and just list the others so people can explore. Does that work?
That sounds great.
Okay, so my first go-to is going to be Anchor, primarily because Kim and I do use it for a bulk of our podcast. We wanted to make sure that we had something that could be easily replicated in a classroom by all ages and all users. And it really is a lovely app. You can use it on literally any device. So I can go on my iPhone, I can go on my iPad, I can go on my Samsung tablet, I can go on my Chromebook, I can go on my Mac, I can go on my phone, I can go like my iOS phone, my iPhone, I can go on an Android phone, and I can just jump into the app or onto the web-based program and start recording. And I can just do little snippets. So I just want my voice, export it. I can download it. They're little enough files. They can stay on a Chromebook and then post them wherever I want, or I can go longer and make full-fledged shows. We've had a show that we recorded for almost an hour once, and it was there. You can insert sound effects. You can have people leave voice messages for you in the Anchor app that you can splice into your audio, which I love. It keeps it in a library. So if you want to go back to it. So for example, Kim and I, we have our intro and our outro to the show just saved in there. So we don't need to record it every time. We just pull that in. I think I said sound effects in there. People can also, on the mobile version of it, you can have like a call, sort of like you use Zencaster. You can use Anchor the same way. If everyone has an Anchor account, they can come in. It acts like a phone call and records all of the audio that's there into one file that can be used and imported as well. So even for students, if you wanted them to collaborate and record audio as a group, if they couldn't get it done in class, if they all had the app on a device and they had a device at home, they'd be able to call in that way as well. I just think it's really robust, and it's our favorite 4-letter F word. It is completely free. They just got bought by Spotify.
Yeah. Now, people were really nervous in the podcasting community about using Anchor, and their nervousness was from, if it's a free tool, it might be great right now, but it might go away someday, and then you lose all those files that are hosted on there. But gosh, if they've been bought by Spotify, like I feel like we have to feel pretty confident in it, right? And Spotify is trying to bring podcasts onto their site, more robustly. And so Anchor helps them do that. So I think
hopefully. And then I think I heard last week when I was at Q that Soundtrap, which is also on my list, also got acquired by Spotify. Now I can't I can't say if that's legit or not, because that was sort of in passing and I haven't read that, but I did read that about Anchor. And yeah, so for now it's free, but even if it is free, you can go in and download your audio out of that. It doesn't need to sit there forever. So if you're just looking for the tool and then to take it somewhere else, it can work in that sense as well. I love that one.
Right.
Our favorite Flipgrid. I don't think you've had an episode where you haven't mentioned Flipgrid, and rightfully so. Flipgrid, you can do the same thing. You can do audio there. And we've talked a lot on our show about using Flipgrid for podcasts or audio. And you don't need to just do the video. So a lot of people see Flipgrid and they're like, oh, it's a video. You have to show your face. You don't. I've sat with teachers and I've been like, let's record a podcast. And I found the idea of podcasting with Flipgrid from Andrew Fenstermaker, who is another ambassador for Flipgrid. And he and I were at the Google Innovator Academy in Washington a couple of summers ago together. We're great friends. And he did the App Smash last year. And he said, why not App Smash, Flipgrid, and WeVideo and Google Drawings and put all those together. And I thought, well, why do you even need the WeVideo aspect of it? Why don't you just, and this is what I do with teachers in my district, I say, put the camera facing a wall, on the wall, post up a logo of some sort, student designed, and then have the students talk off camera. So the computer is facing the wall, but the mic is coming out the side. And so they're speaking, and so they're getting the audio, and then it's just whatever image you want there. And in our case, it's to do podcasts, but let's say you're explaining a system. You could have students, those, like I'm a secondary teacher, but when I go into elementary schools and realize that elementary teachers need to make 14 times more money than they do, they have those little pointer sticks, right, with the fingers on them. There's no reason you couldn't put up a graphic, set up your computer, and then have students off screen point and just talk that way. And then you can extract that. And share the audio that way that it's not their face if people are a bit camera shy. So that I think Flipgrid works really, really well for that. Vocaroo is another one. that you can download or you can record online. It's all cloud-based. Short, I think it's up to 5 minutes, audio clips, and then export them to other places. Last week at Q, Brian Briggs and Ryan O'Donnell from one of my favorite podcasts, check this out, we're doing a presentation on podcasting, and they talked about it's a Google Chrome app called Beautiful Audio Editor. And I just played with it before we got on tonight, and it is really robust. It sort of looks like Audacity. It's all cloud-based, and it saves everything right to your Google Drive. You can have multiple tracks on it. You can import audio from other places if you had, let's say, music you wanted to import. It looks really great, but I haven't played in it a lot, but it's certainly something to do. Synth is another tool. SYNTH that's come out that they said we're sort of like Flipgrid, but only the audio aspects of it.
Right. They were recap. They were
correct.
Kind of Flipgrid one competitor, and then they said, you know what, we have another vision. We're going to pivot, which is such a great and innovative move to pivot to something different.
I totally agree, and I've reached out to them and said I want a walled garden so that students, as a classroom teacher, I can say, okay, here's where we're going to play, and I know Soundtrap does this. Here's where we're going to play. And I want you all to upload your podcast, but I don't want other people in that synth community to see it. And they can lock it down so it's private and only share it with specific people and be those stakeholders like their teacher or, a resource teacher, special ed, let's say, an administrator, their parents, a friend, whoever it happens to be. They can share that way. And again, that's one that I've played with in limited release, we'll say, but I do think it has a lot of potential. And then my last one would be Talk and Comment, which is a Google Chrome extension. And when you load it up, you get a little microphone on the right-hand side of your screen. Have you used it before?
Yeah, I've seen it in use, yeah.
Yeah, and you press the button, it records what you want to say, and then it saves this little audio file. And Kim and I talked about it on Shooks and GIF that you can then add that in, let's say, a Google Classroom. So if you have a student with an exceptionality, if you can add that link in and read whatever the post is that you're leaving, like let's say an assignment, you can read the assignment out loud. All the students would do is click the link, and sure enough, it's stored there as a link on the internet, and it just plays audio. So you don't even need to download. So that's a perfect one for a Chromebook is Talk and Comment. So those are what WeVideo I also would think to go to. WeVideo is so robust.
Yeah, it really is.
And Soundtrap. The limitations with both of those is that they are paid. I think it's $5 a month to even like their basic stuff. Oh, okay. But now they might have free versions, but I tend to go to the free tools because I want to be able to mimic what we're doing in classrooms, and we're not going to pay necessarily $5 a seat to pay for those. But I could be wrong, and I'm sure someone will pipe up and say, no, that there is actually a free one there. But at a quick glance with what we want to do, if you want to get as robust as the other tools, that you do have to pay. Yeah. But I would definitely start with Anchor. I'd look into this beautiful audio editor for Chrome, Flipgrid, Vocaroo, Talk and Comment, Synth, and then look at Soundtrap or WeVideo. So there's 8 that I thought of in like 10 minutes.
That's quite a list, and that's awesome. And the best way for listeners right now who are going like, holy crap, which one do I pick? is to figure out what you want to do first, right? If your goal is just to record audio files and they're just either staying with that user, or maybe they're going like you said for students with special needs, maybe to read a text aloud, then you're probably going to look at Vocaroo or Talk and Comment, right?
For sure.
Because those are the two simplest ones. Literally all they do is record. Both of them store it on their servers, I think, right? So you get access to links. So those are the first two to look at if you're just looking to just simply record. If you're looking to edit audio, then you're going to look at Beautiful Audio Editor or Soundtrap. Now, Soundtrap, like you said, it does have a cost. It looks like it is $250 for a year for up to 50 users. Now, it's not clear here. It says users, not seats. So that makes me nervous that it's only 50 kids.
Yeah, I think it might be seats.
Yeah.
I think it might be seats. But you know what? The Soundtrap community is really, really responsive, and they have a lot of teachers working with them, and their Twitter is very active. So if anyone has questions, tweet out at them and they will get back to you instantaneously. I know and same with Synth. Right. I've reached out to both of them before, and they're very responsive.
Yeah. That discussion about seats, for those of you who maybe don't understand what Jen and I are saying there, if a tool sells it by the seat, that's just like your classroom where you could have one student sitting in that seat first period and a different student sitting in that seat second period. So if you have 5 classes of 30 kids, then you would only need a 30-seat tool for whatever tool you might be using, because you could transition it to other kids at other times when they're using it. And that's the way WeVideo prices, I know, which you mentioned. WeVideo is obviously by its name primarily a video editor. Does it export as audio files too? Do you know?
I believe you can in some capacity, but I don't have a lot of experience with WeVideo. I just feel like every time I talk about audio or video, the first thing that comes up always, if I tweet it out, say I'm looking for a tool, that it's always WeVideo.
Right. It's a fantastic tool. And because they go by a seats model, and because their pricing is fair, you could buy like whatever it is, 50 seats at a fair price, and that's 50 kids at a time. But then the next semester or whatever, you could switch to 50 different kids. So the pricing is very fair, and it's flexible like that. And they say that's how they intended it to be used. Now, Soundtrap I've never used, but it looks like it is a fully featured with a capital F audio editor. Like, it looks like it has some very nice tools built into it.
Well, and a lot of people looking to edit music make that, but that's not the only way to use it, right? It's sort of like GarageBand. You can
it looks just like it.
Yeah, you can do a lot in there with music, but you can do a lot in there to do like audiobook reading, to do podcast recording. We can't go in with blinders. And that's the beautiful thing about your analogy, right? Is sometimes like duct tape can be used in so many different ways on so many different items. And that's these tools definitely they're very robust.
Yeah. One thing I do like looking on Soundtrap's site is that they directly say under their portion of their site about education, walled garden. So they do make it so that if your students are recording and posting in Soundtrap, you can make it so it is just as secure inside this walled garden environment. So only the people you want to hear their stuff are hearing it, and it lists that it's COPA and FERPA compliant. Many of these things probably are too, but I just happened to see it on Soundtrap's page. Wanted to point that out.
Yeah,
beautiful audio editor I've never used before, but it is a fully featured editor, and so that's a good one to explore. Now, we talked about ones for just straight up recording. We talked about ones for editing those recordings. Now, what if we really want to share them out and kind of have a community aspect? Well, that would be when you would start considering either Anchor or Flipgrid or Synth, probably.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it really then it just depends on what actually you're trying to do. If you're doing Synth, then it's literally just sharing audio. If you do Flipgrid, it comes with some video with it. But like you said, you just point the webcam at the screen, or you could do a screencast with just an image of of your album art or whatever up on the screen. So it doesn't have to be their face, so they can kind of process it like it is audio. Now, truth be told, too, for this show, people call in questions and things like that on Flipgrid, and it's a video that I see, but then I just pull the audio out of that and put it into the show. So in that right, you could do it that way too.
And you can also app smash Flipgrid if it was something that you wanted audio on that a student was reading off a script. You could always app smash it with Screencastify, have them read right off the script, record the screen, save that video, and upload that so you can read along with the script and export the audio that way.
Yeah, we've had kids do kind of a similar thing with Screencastify and a script like that to rewrite the lyrics of popular songs to reflect content information. Yeah. And they make like karaoke video where they're scrolling down through the lyrics as they're either singing them or, you're imagining that you're singing them there. Now, Anchor, which is a great tool, is especially because it's free, but also because now we feel more confident in it now that it's been purchased by Spotify. They are 13 and up, correct?
They are 13 and up. WeVideo, a lot of our elementary teachers in our district won't use it because it says 13 and up, but they say if you're using the education, so long as you have parental permission, you're good to go, which they should. But
I think the workaround here, if in fact you can't be under 13 on Anchor, is that it's a teacher account. But you obviously need to be, forthcoming about that to the parents or to your administration and saying, look, it's my account. There's no student information on there. It's just their voice, and share those files with the parents so that they can hear them and things like that. And I wouldn't think that they would have any concern over that, but you want to be forthcoming about that stuff. And it's a great tool. I haven't used it myself, but hearing you describe it, I'm like, wow, how could we not use it?
It's robust. And for those in secondary who are over 13, they can do a lot. Like they could extract a lot of audio that way. Once they're sort of even more adept at thinking about that big picture planning, like you may not want a tool that's that capable at younger grades, right? It may be too much for them to handle. Whereas when they've played in the walled garden and something like Soundtrap for a while, then maybe giving them that freedom more so in secondary It's sort of a rite of passage.
Yep. Now, another one I want to add in here, not that we need another one because it just replicates some of the other possibilities. One that I've recommended for years is Twisted Wave, which is what I first heard mentioned by Eric Curts years ago when I first looked into this. So I just trusted him. And Amy Roediger, who was on episode 11, I believe it was, recommended Twisted Wave to me once upon a time as well. So I know it works, right? But it's a all online recorder and editor. So that's a tool if you're looking to record and edit. It is free, but they have paid versions. And the way it works is on the free version, quality is a little bit limited, it's fair. You have to protect the space on their servers, and you're limited to 5-minute recording. So if you're looking to record a podcast, Twisted Wave is not going to work unless you start paying for it. But if you're just looking for short audio files that the kids want to be able to edit and have multiple tracks, Twisted Wave is another option to throw into there. It doesn't look like the editor is as good as Soundtrap, but it's cheaper than Soundtrap. And I'll have to compare it to Beautiful Audio Editor and WeVideo. Who knows? There's tools to assess and think about. And like I always say on the show, there's not one right answer. So I hope nobody's listening saying like, tell me which one. Like just figure out which one fits your needs and maybe meets your district's rules for tools, and whatever you use, you're going to be doing stuff for your kids.
And give choice to our students, right? What's going to work for one person isn't necessarily going to work. Like, look at you and I. We both have podcasts that we enjoy doing that are well received, and we don't use the same tool. So sometimes it's what you know, and sometimes it's what you need. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying to students, here are 3 different options. Go play in them a little bit and see which one works best for the way that your mind works.
Right. And ultimately, when our kids are out there in the real world in 10 years or 15 years or whatever it might be, when they're at their jobs, they're not going to be using any of these tools likely. They're probably all going to be dinosaurs of technology tools. Yeah. And so what we're teaching them are the competencies of how to use the tools, how to collaborate in the tools, how to create with these tools, because the tool itself is not going to be relevant to them in 15 years.
And you know what? I say that to teachers all the time, Jake, and what we do when they're like, oh, here's another LMS that we're going to try, another tool that the district wants us to roll out. And I say, you know what? It's really not about that. It's about the transference. So take what you learned from the last one and move on. We wouldn't let our students get away with saying, you know what? I wrote essays in the 9th grade. I'm not going to write them in the 10th grade because I'm writing them differently in the 11th. Right. We don't say that, right? We take skills from one and we build on that to become more proficient at what we're trying to do. Chris Betcher from Australia has a great quote in his keynote. And he says, there are many ways to achieve the verb that don't depend on the noun. And I love that so much. The idea of it's the action, it's not the tool that we're using that matters to us, because you're going to take different things from different spaces and apply them for our learning. It doesn't matter that, okay, you used Anchor or I used Anchor and you used Libsyn, and, it just doesn't matter.
Right. It really doesn't. That's total truth. And so I think that's a message that people need to hear about educational technology. And that's why teachers often get overwhelmed is trying to figure out which tool to select. No, just pick one that meets the needs of whatever pedagogy you're trying to accomplish. And it's going to be good for kids.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm glad we delved deeply into that audio tool topic, because a lot of people have said to me, what's the best audio tool? And I really haven't known the answer myself. I've always said Twisted Wave or Synth. Yeah. And so now you've given me a whole bunch of different options, and I hope people will explore those and try them out and let us know, what they think of them when they try them out, what their experiences are. Is your cat okay, by the way?
Oh, my cat cries all friggin' night. Like, this is when she starts. She just cries and cries and cries. And she's 18. Almost 18. She's 18 in a couple weeks.
All right, Jen, this was awesome. And I feel like we have so much to talk about. Can we do 2 episodes? Are you up for it?
I'm totally up for it.
Okay.
Episode 2. Let's do it.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's meet back here in 1 week from today. Okay. And do a little bit more. Are you up for it?
I can totally do it. Hopefully my cat doesn't cry. Hopefully I don't get deported from Canada or wherever I live now.
Canada.
Canada. There it is. I'm in. I will talk to you every week if you want.
Every week. Thank you.
You tried to fire me from my podcast. I need a new place to live.
That is true. I did try to fire you from your podcast.
Jen's fired. I heard that.
Such a blast talking to my buddy, Jen Giffen. That's at Virtual GIF, GIFF. I hope you guys will go follow her on Twitter and check out her podcast with Kim Polishuk, titled Shooks and GIF. She's going to be back next week to tackle the second question that we were supposed to have tackled in today's episode, but we had so much fun talking about all those audio options. So next week, she's going to be back to talk about graphic design options, especially on Chromebooks. So you're not going to want to miss that one. Now let's jump into some Duct Taper content from our wonderful, wonderful Duct Taper community who makes me feel so good every day when I find my time to get on Twitter and see what y'all are saying out there. First up comes our Apple Podcast review, which comes from our friend at Angela Green 12. Hers was titled Educational Duct Tape for the Win. And it says, Educational Duct Tape, the new podcast by Ohio's own Jake Miller, has got it all. It's educational technology that keeps learning center stage. Imagine a blog that adheres to the framework of the TPAC model, coupled with lots of dad humor. Thanks for this important contribution to the educational technology community, Jake. And thank you, Angela, for that review. Very, very kind of you. I really appreciate it. I didn't realize that I had dad humor until you said that. So I did some soul searching after that. But I guess I'm a dad and I do like humor. So I guess if the shoe fits, right? Oftentimes my soul searching ends with the comment, if the shoe fits. Get it? Soul searching, shoe fits. Now that's dad humor. Next up, our hashtag EDU duct tape tweets for the week. A little lighter load this week because I released last week's a little bit late and I'm recording this week's a little bit early, but still some good content to share with you guys. First up, at Wendy Cohen, EDU, was replying to me announcing last week's episode with Kim Polishuk and said most underrated joke of the episode was actually library DVDs. I didn't know that was a joke, Wendy. I thought that was normal when you were looking for the 4th season of that show you're binging and it's not on Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu to go down to your local library and see if they have it. I didn't know that was weird. Next up, our friend Laura Cahill, otherwise known as at Engage Ducate. I'm sorry, Laura. It's actually at Engage Educate, but the E's are shared. It looks really, really cool in her symbol, but it's difficult when I say it out loud on the podcast. She said, I don't LOL often, but the Thanos Google Calendar joke got me. And yeah, that was a fun discussion with Kim, aka Captain Efficiency. And Laura put in possibly the best meme of all time with Thanos, and it said, the Google Calendar invite clearly said, epic battle at 8 a.m. Where is everybody? Amazing, Laura. I love that. Next up, at Virtual GIF, who you just heard today in this episode, replying to the episode with her friend Kim Polishuk, said JPEG is pronounced GPEG. Hashtag truth. I heard it on hashtag EDU duct tape. I think it's going to be a thing, Jen. I think we can make this happen. Duct tapers, help me out. GPEG. That's how it's pronounced. I thought the creator wanted it. It's a hard J. Next up, at Meg Bub, said, at JakeMillerTech, was listening to today's episode of hashtag EDU duct tape when I heard you were at Universal and Potter World. Now I know we are besties. HP is the best. Yes, Megan, my family is a little Harry Potter obsessed right now. We started reading the books together as a family back in June. I actually had not read them myself. My wife read them as they were released. And so we started reading them with the kids every night before bedtime. My kids are 5, 7, and 9, and they are just loving it. I think they like my Harry Potter voices the best. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a little arrogant there. I'm not sure. But we have a good time with it. And yeah, Universal Studios Harry Potter World was amazing. I think my kids were in heaven. And our final hashtag EDU duct tape tweet of the week comes from our friend at Lissa Brunnan, who said, at JakeMillerTech posed some great... By the way, Lissa, I said Lissa, not Lisa that time. Aren't you proud of me? At JakeMillerTech posed some great reflection questions to ponder for both educators and students during his soapbox speech on this week's episode of the hashtag EDU Duct Tape podcast. And she's referring to last week's episode where I talked about 2 different questions that you can ask yourself in reflection of lessons you do, activities you do, professional development presentations you do, whatever it might be. And she made a really cool, I guess we'll call it an infographic or a graphic organizer or a visual that she shared in the tweet of those 2 questions, which is just, it feels so cool to me for people to make something that relates back to the podcast that I'm making. It's just, it's touching to be honest. But it's a very cool visual. So I'm going to share that link in the show notes so you guys can all access it. I'm also going to share the link to Laura's awesome Twitter meme there with Thanos. And next up, our new hashtag EDU duct tape tweeps. Only 2 this week. This is the lightest load there's ever been. I think it's partially because of the short week, but I think we just need to find some new duct tapers out there to connect with on Twitter. Our 2 new friends are at Bon Kramer and at Shar_Colinge. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Collinge. When there's only 2 people, I can't butcher the pronunciations of them. That's just messed up, Jake. And finally, our hashtag EDU duct tape Flipgrid submission of the week comes from our good friend Susan Applin, who we've mentioned before in the podcast for her awesome professional development that she led in her school district, where the staff members selected and listened to different episodes, or at least the question portions of this podcast as a PD. So let's check out what Susan has to say.
Hi, I'm Susan Applin. That's Applin Teacher, Applin, on Twitter. And I am the Digital Integration Specialist at Dutch Fork High School, and that's in Lexington, Richland 5 in South Carolina. We're a suburban school district. My high school is about 1,700 students, and we're one-to-one with Chromebooks. And I was incredibly hesitant to record a Flipgrid, but I've been enjoying the show so much. And what I ask my teachers and students to do a lot of times is to take a risk and try something new. So here I am out on Flipgrid with you. I really wanted to let you know, Jake, how much I'm enjoying the podcast. I really relate to the content, the guests, and it's really made me reconsider listening to podcasts. I haven't considered myself an auditory learner before, but listening to these has made me want to listen more, and I really appreciate that. I also wanted to take just a moment. In episode 12, you shared my tweet about using your podcast in PD, and I have a spreadsheet that lists all of the questions that you use in each of the episodes. So I've just made it a short bit.ly to share with the community. That's bit.ly/edu-duct-tape-q list. So hopefully that'll help some people out, and we've really enjoyed sharing it in our community. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Susan. That's just super cool. And I'm going to put the link to that in the show notes, that bit.ly that she mentions there in that Flipgrid submission. And I'll put that in the show notes so you guys can get to it. And what it is, it's a really cool spreadsheet where she has listed each week's 2 questions that I answered with the guests, so that her staff that she works with could go in there and say, oh, this is a question that I have. And they could listen to just that one to get the learning out of that part. I hope that they then become obsessed with the show and listen to all of them secretly. That's my master plan. Insert Mr. Burns meme here. Yes, excellent. But seriously, really, really cool, Susan. I'm going to put it in the show notes. And it's just, again, just like the thing I mentioned earlier with Lissa's tweet, it's just touching that somebody would do this based on the podcast that I'm making. And speaking of which, that does it for this week's episode of the podcast that I'm making. Please don't forget to subscribe. If you haven't left a review, I really do appreciate and enjoy the reviews. If you haven't told your colleagues about the show, please do that. If you haven't tweeted about it so everybody knows how wonderful you think the show is, please do that. If you are interested in GIF-a-Day, please hop over to JakeMiller.net/GIF-a-Day. That's GIFADAY to register for this very first iteration of GIF-a-Day, which is about Google Sheets. If you'd like some stickers for the show, either for you and your friends or to pass out at an upcoming Ed Camp or conference, head on over to JakeMiller.net/sendMeStickers. And again, to hear your voice on the podcast, just like you heard Emily's and Susan's today, head to flipgrid.com/EDUDuctTape or head to EDUDuctTape.com and then click on the Flipgrid link. And that is going to send me out of here for the week. I really immensely appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for being here. I love the Duct Tapers. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. Please visit eduducttape.com to join the discussion, share possible topics, inquire about being a guest, or contact Jake. And remember, duct is spelled with a T, not a quack quack K.